Are tanks obsolete? That question is getting a lot louder and being asked by a lot more people. With drones saturating the battlefield, loitering munitions killing vehicles worth millions, and destroyed advanced Western tanks dotting the battlefields of Ukraine, the idea of a 70-ton steel juggernaut feels increasingly out of step with the realities of modern combat. But the Army is still pushing ahead with tanks, and at the AUSA conference, we got some fresh insight into the coming M1E3 Abrams upgrade and what leaders imagine for the next generation of armored warfare. Welcome back to Task and Purpose. I'm Kyle, and today we are talking about the future of tanks in the US Army and in general. We're also going to break down some new information on the M1E3 upgrade, and we're going to try our best to answer some of those questions, like, is the tank obsolete? Thank you so much for being here. Let's get started. But first, let's talk about Odoo, because running a business is hard enough. You shouldn't need 5 different platforms just to keep things moving. Odoo brings it all into one place: your website, your inventory, your sales tools, all fully integrated and connected. Need a website? Pick a theme, drag and drop what you need, and you're up and running like that. Odoo's built-in AI even helps write your product descriptions and summaries so you don't waste your time sitting there staring at a blank screen. Behind the scenes, inventory is just as simple. You can see what's in stock, what's shipping, and what's delayed, all from one dashboard. Automate vendor reminders, pay receipts, and set delivery schedules with just a few clicks. It even syncs automatically with your e-commerce and sales apps. With Odoo, everything works together so you can spend less time managing tools and more time growing your business. Start today at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com. Your first app is free, and we would like to thank Odoo for sponsoring this episode. Tanks used to be the ultimate battlefield asset. Armies that had them in quantity, knew how to use them, and could sustain them were often the ones that won wars. From the tank's debut in World War I in 1916 to the Desert Storm Maneuver Masterclass in 1991, heavy armor has been essential for breakthroughs, combined arms maneuver, and mobile firepower. Even during the global war on terror, the main battle tank proved valuable, but things are different now. In Ukraine, tanks have proven both critical but also deeply vulnerable. Russian tanks have been absolutely torn apart by top attack missiles like the Javelin and NLAW, loitering munitions, and drones either dropping grenades on them or flying RPG rounds right under the turret. Before Oryx stopped tracking the losses in January of 2025, they visually verified 4,152 Russian tanks that had been destroyed. And it's not just Russian tanks. Western supplied Abrams, Leopard 2s, and Challenger 2s have taken heavy losses. Of the 31 Abrams tanks that the United States sent, and a reminder that these were the export version that did not have depleted uranium armor, between an estimated 4 and 12 are still operational. When armor is unsupported by infantry, electronic warfare measures, and air cover, it tends to die fast. So after watching thousands of videos of tank turrets flying through the air, many have declared the tank to be obsolete. The Army, however, is not convinced that that is the case, and it's reevaluating what might actually survive the drone era. That's where the M1E3 comes in. The Army's most recent efforts to upgrade the Abrams and its armored branch as a whole have been a whirlwind of overlapping and mostly abandoned programs over the last several years. In 2018, they began developing the SEP V3 and SEP V4 upgrades at the same time. In 2020, they spent $4.6 billion on those SEP V3 upgrades that were scheduled to be completed by 2028. These focused primarily on adding better optics, networking, and fire control systems, but it came with a cost. Weight. Not like weight, I'm going to tell you, it was actually weight. More systems meant more power demands, more cooling, and even more mass added to a tank that already weighs over 70 tons. In 2023, the Army took a somewhat drastic step and canceled the SEP V4 and announced that they'd do a whole new upgrade called the M1E3, built off both the V3 and the V4, with even more survivability, modularity, multi-domain capabilities, and digital integration packed in. You can fit a whole lot of buzzwords into this bad boy. Then, more recently, in maybe a more shocking move, it shut down the M10 Booker light tank program after about 100 were built and delivered. And, kind of obviously, it is not moving forward with the Abrams X concept either. That brings us to today, where in the fiscal year 2026 budget, the Army wants to spend $723.5 million to build 4 test vehicles and further develop the M1E3. That is a pretty significant vote of confidence in the future of American tanks, and it's moving fast. When the SEP V4 was cancelled, it was thought that the M1E3 would not be available until 2032. That means from 2023, when the M1E3 was announced, it would be 9 years until they could get that into the hands of the soldiers that would actually use it, and that's just a long time. But at AUSA, it was announced that the Army would take delivery of a prototype from General Dynamics Land Systems, they're the ones who make the Abrams, in December, with the platoon's worth, and that's 4 tanks, showing up in 2026. This is pretty significant because the M1E3 isn't just another Abrams tank. It's kind of a whole new thing unto itself based on what a tank should be in a battlefield full of drones, jammers, and loitering threats, and could come in a much different form factor than the Abrams. Truth be told, it's probably going to look a lot like an Abrams because a clean sheet design would take a lot longer than what they're pushing, but here's what we know right now. First, we'll address the weight. The M1E3 is being designed to be lighter than the SEP V3 and V4, which come in around 78 tons. Weight slows you down, usually means a larger target, makes certain terrain simply impassable, and complicates logistics and transport. For example, it takes 1 C-17 to move 1 Abrams tank, and that is a lot. If we're hoping to deploy these things on a small sandy Pacific island or in the muddy fields of Eastern Europe, that just isn't going to cut it. So leaders are trying to keep the weight around 60 tons, and yes, that is still thick with 3 Cs and still really only transportable in the air by the C-17, but it should at least help with maneuverability aspect and speed. The Army also stressed that the M1E3 will be more modular and built with upgrade cycles in mind. Leaders want modular armor packages, modular sensors, modular powertrains, everything designed to be swapped out or upgraded as technology improves or the battlefield changes. They're leaving space for next generation weapons like lasers, more sophisticated jammers, more directed energy weapons like microwaves, and of course Skynet. The next generation tank is also being designed to keep the crews safe, and yes, no shit, right? But there is a little more to it than that. This includes integrated active protection systems, or APS, that are not just bolted onto the tank like they are now with the trophy systems, but fully baked into the architecture. In a previous video that we did about how the Army plans to keep armor safe, and we'll put it up in one of these corners, you can click and watch it if you want, we talked about the Modular Active Protection System, or MAPS, from Lockheed. This plugs and plays with APSs like the Trophy or the Iron Fist across multiple vehicles with multiple systems from multiple manufacturers and can be adapted to multiple mission sets. Multiple. To propel the M1E3, the Army is evaluating a hybrid electric drive system, which will be on the prototype they're supposed to take possession of in December. A hybrid would reduce the thermal and acoustic signature of the tank. That matters for survivability, and it could also allow the vehicle to run with its engine off, keeping sensors and comms running while hiding its heat signature. In looking at what's going to propel this thing, they're weighing performance, reliability, and logistical trade-offs, but it seems like hybrid is a direction the Pentagon is heading with many ground vehicles, in large part because now everybody has thermal cameras on those damn drones, and traditional camouflage just doesn't do much to protect against that. Also, the more fuel efficient a vehicle is, the less of a strain it places on logistics, and remember friends, logistics wins wars. And I'm not just saying that because I was a logistician in the Marine Corps. It really just does win wars. I can't help that my job was superior to everybody else's. Now what about the crew? While an unmanned or at least crew optional tank isn't expected, the M1E3 is expected to reduce crew workload through automation and AI assisted systems. That may eventually lead to a 3-person crew, or at least a more efficient use of the crew. It's not quite the leap to unmanned tanks, but it's a step in that direction, and maybe they can throw a robot in there like what is happening with the Black Hawk turned U-Hawk Tua. It's not actually the U-Hawk Tua, but I think we should probably start calling it the U-Hawk Tua. The problem is that UGVs, unmanned ground vehicles, haven't quite caught up to other drones. DARPA and others are making significant progress, but moving across the ground is in many ways far more complicated than flying through the sky. Things called edge cases, like what happens if you come across a puddle of mud or a log that is suddenly in your path, throw multiple wrenches into this. Now toss in battlefield complexity and you can start to see how this isn't as simple as when you were a kid with your sick-ass remote-controlled Tyco RC truck.
The meanest radio-controlled stunt machine you've ever seen!
And finally, we have to address one major question. What will this thing shoot? Totally honest, we have no idea, and the people who do have an idea aren't talking about it. Right now, the Abrams has a 120mm cannon and a pretty solid fire control system in the SEP V3. There really hasn't been many complaints about the main gun on an Abrams. General Dynamics could go with what we know and slap that 120mm on there with some upgraded bells and whistles, or it could go larger to like 140mm. Maybe we just take a howitzer and shove it in there and go all the way up to 155. Maybe give the option of firing ATGMs or loitering munitions from the main gun. Maybe it will be lasers. Or even a squid launcher from Despicable Me, though PETA would probably not appreciate that.
Oh yeah!
With a potentially smaller crew size, this could also mean an autoloader would likely feed whatever the gun is. This also makes us wonder what other things will be on the vehicle. A remote 50 cal turret, loitering munition launchers, a microwave weapon to defeat drones and other electronic stuff. There is so much room for activities on these tanks. What do you all think? Some folks out there, maybe even you watching right now, are asking why we're still investing in manned tanks at all. Isn't the future drones, loitering munitions, and uncrewed ground vehicles? Maybe, but the Army's view is that we're not there yet and won't be for a while. There are a few reasons for that. First, reliability. No uncrewed ground vehicle has yet proven itself in combat as a direct fire platform. The control latency, meaning it can sometimes take a while for the command to reach the vehicle from whoever's commanding it, along with navigation issues, and the threat of jamming make them a tough sell in chaotic ground conditions. Second, tactical presence. A tank isn't just a weapon system, it's a psychological and physical anchor for maneuver warfare. And third, the most important, logistics. The Army already has the tools, training pipelines, and industrial base to keep fielding Abrams hulls. A clean sheet design would take a while to build even as the Pentagon revamps the acquisition process, with months instead of years being the hoped-for benchmark. So I kind of view the M1E3 upgrade as a bridge. It's the Army's way of buying time, modernizing with what it has, while laying the groundwork for what might come next. It's not really the end of the tank, it's just kind of the start of a new phase of the tank. It's worth noting that the US is not the only country trying to figure out the future of tanks. Russia is still pumping out T-90Ms, which are a little cruder, but they're also cheaper and faster to field than a true next-gen tank. They also have the T-14 Armata, which has been mostly MIA with few units fielded, if any, and little evidence that it can perform as advertised or do anything. China continues to develop and refine the Type 99A, and in their little military parade earlier this year, they unveiled the brand new Type 100. This one is smaller, estimated at just about 45 tons, pretty close to the M10 Booker, but is being heralded as the world's first beyond visual range main battle tank. And yes, it has a crew. North Korea paraded its Chunma-2 or M2020 tank several years ago. It is what looks like a patchwork of borrowed Chinese and Russian tech modeled after the Abrams and T-14. Whether it works is unclear, but the message is clear, and that is we are still building tanks. Countries like India, South Korea, Turkey, the UK, and several others are also pursuing tank development, often for export. These platforms tend to follow the legacy models of big guns, big engines, and big armor. Bottom line is, everyone else seems to think that tanks are still important, so do we zag when they're all zigging, or do we keep playing the same game? The M1E3 is not without its risks. There are serious drawbacks to doubling down on a manned, tracked platform in an era when automation, drones, and distributed warfare are reshaping the battlefield like never before. For one, it's still largely built on legacy assumptions. The crew is still sitting inside, protected by armor, manually commanding the vehicle. Then there's the question of relevance. Even with signature reduction and active protection, a 65-ton tank is still a high-value target. Survivability tech helps, but it doesn't make the tank invisible. And if battlefield dynamics continue to shift toward indirect but ultra-precise fire, electronic warfare, and uncrewed systems, there's a chance that the Army is going to be stuck with a tank built for the last war. And the cost. Building an interim tank to bridge the gap between the present and an unmanned future might be prudent, or it might be a $10 billion distraction from investing in what comes next. Either way, it doesn't really matter what I or anybody else says, because the Army is accepting these risks now in the hope that the M1E3 can buy time and flexibility later. So what is the future of tanks, and not just the US Army, but in general? It's lighter, it's more survivable, it can do a lot more than just shoot, and yes, for now, it still has humans inside. This might be the last manned tank that the Army ever builds, and for now it appears like they're designing it with that in mind. Whether that is smart or not, we'll find out, but the Army isn't giving up on tanks, and you know what? Neither are we, because tanks are cool. Go ahead and hit those comments and let us know what you think about the M1E3, tanks, the future, drones, whatever you got. We're curious what you have. I wrote this script and Savvy edited the video. Just a few channel updates for you guys. Like I said in a previous video, I'm going to take the end to keep you guys updated, let you know what's going on, just so we can get to know each other a little better. In the past couple weeks, our team has doubled to 2. It's now myself and David Rosa, who wrote for Task and Purpose between 2019 and 2023, and we stole him back from where he was to write scripts for us. He's been great. He's going to allow us to do a whole lot of new things. He's an actual journalist. I'm not really. He's a real journalist, so he's going to get us access to all sorts of new things, new ideas, new sources. I'm really excited for that. So with him helping with the writing, I hope to get out there and visit the military community. Go to Camp Lejeune and see how Marines shoot down drones, or go to Fort Bragg and see how paratroopers prepare to jump out of an airplane. Things like that. Just get out there so that when we talk about this stuff, like tanks and guns and whatever, we can put the people behind it and tell their story. And like, it's fun to talk about this stuff, but how it gets used is just as important. And that's kind of hard to tell by reading through a screen. So I'm hoping to get out there and do some stuff. If you guys have things that you want to see me do, or we can send someone else, I don't know. Let us know things that you've always wondered about that we could get access to, because at Task and Purpose, we actually have access to a fair amount of people. We're like real journalists. We're a real newsroom. We even had Pentagon press credentials. We don't anymore because we didn't sign that thing that they wanted us to sign, but we have access to people, so we want to use that for the videos to get more things out to you guys. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm going to shut my mouth now because, believe it or not, I did this probably 7 or 8 takes, and I know the editors are sick of it. So I'm Kyle, your friendly ginger producer man. You are all dismissed, and I will see you next time.